Hey, Ken. Hey, congratulations on your documentary, Al Davis versus NFL.
Thanks, Kate.
Hey,
Uh,
so tell us what sparked you to make this documentary.
well, Al Davis is one of the greatest characters in sports history. You know, he's one of those characters when he is on screen, you can't take your eyes off him. Um, and this year seemed the perfect time to do it because his franchise, the Raiders, moved to Las Vegas, and it seemed to us that the story was finally over because he always wanted a new stadium. He always wanted to have a home for his franchise, the Raiders, and he died without seeing it happen. And his legacy was never really complete. So his son and the new commissioner of the NFL, Roger Goodell, sort of finished wasn't what wasn't capable of being done in the Al Davis Pete Rozelle war that's covered in this film. So today, 2020, sort of marks the end of the hostilities that this film is all about. So we thought it the perfect year to film it and debut it now in 2021.
When you had the intention of doing this documentary, was the intention is doing the documentary about Al Davis, or you wanted to do the documentary about Al Davis and Pete Rozelle?
We wanted to do the relationship about both because the relationship was one that seemed fascinating in that it represented two people who, in another lifetime, in another alternate multiverse reality, would be best friends.
Mm-hmm.
They really, really loved the NFL equally. They had the same goal, which was for football to succeed. But gosh, they saw it completely differently on how to get there. And I found that fascinating in that the two of them were polar opposites in every way, a collaborator and a competitor, someone who in every way would want to go against you, and a person who wants to never go against you and collaborate with you. Those two parts, those two types of personalities, I find in myself. And those two parts in myself never get along. I want to rebel against authority, but then sometimes I have to work with people and collaborate with people. And boy, those two parts of myself don't get along. To look at two individuals that had to work together and had to try to fix problems and could never do it, it just seemed natural.
So, how extensive did the research that you actually make for your documentary? Because you went far back to practically almost at the beginning there.
Yes. Well, luckily, NFL Films, started shooting league history in 1962. So we had a treasure trove at NFL Films, and of course, ESPN luckily began covering sports in 1979, 1980, right when the trials began between Al Davis and the National Football League. So the research was really heavy, and I would say for the hour, 78-minute film, I would say we probably went through probably about 3,000 hours worth of material to get to that point. And that's just of Al Davis and Pete Rozelle footage. And we needed that to get to the story, the core story, because you could do a 10-part series on either one of the men's documentary on their personal story alone. Their biographies are fascinating. We just wanted to concentrate on where they intersected with each other, and still could have made it a lot longer.
was it that easy to get permission to use the footage for your documentary?
Well, being accurate was very important to make sure that we were allowed to use the footage, to license the footage, to recreate Al and Pete. And in order to do that, we had to go through all that footage. That was part of what allowed the deep fake to happen, is that the dialogue that we wrote for Pete and Al, we had to make sure was based on what they actually said, was based on archives that we found, was based on transcripts and research that we did. So it was as close as possible to what they said. They obviously weren't actually spirits in 2020 walking around Allegiant Stadium, so we couldn't know exactly what they would say in 2020, but the spirit of what they would say is completely accurate, and at the end, everyone felt very comfortable with how we presented it.
You know, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a football guy, so I wasn't sure who Al Davis or Pete Rozelle was. But when I watched the documentary, it wasn't towards the end. I was like going, "Wait a second, they're dead."
Ah,
But
so
I'm sure every sports person and NFL
well,
person knew that. So
here's the here's the rub, which might help. The film will be shown on television with an introduction by me that explains that they're dead and that we're using this deep fake technology. So that might help.
that would certainly would have helped. So when and why did you make that decision of the deep fake technology? Why, where did it came from for you saying, you know what, this is a great idea?
Well, when you want to make a film about two people who are deceased, you would first turn to people who knew them and know about the relationship. But it turns out a lot of the people that were closest to that relationship are also deceased. So where do you turn then? Then you turn to the secondary and tertiary people who would have their own points of view on that relationship. Well, now you're getting into hearsay and points of view that are their points of view instead of the points of view of the actual participants of the relationship. And you start getting further away from the truth, which is really what you're trying to obtain in the documentary. And we had so much material of Al and Pete that we said, we want to hear from Al and Pete. That's it. That's all we want to hear from. So in this case, 20 years ago, we would have cast actors probably. We would have put a wig on somebody and said, you're Al, and put another wig on somebody and said, you're Pete. And that's what we would have done. And technology has come far enough that we decided to sort of take this leap. And, to my knowledge, we're the first sports documentary to try to use deep fake technology to, bring back deceased individuals to sort of tell their story. Now, to do that, they're certainly, as you say, not alive. So we wanted to present it in a science fiction sort of setting, which is why the famous broadcaster Brent Musburger also sets up at the start of the film that if the spirits of Pete and Al are still around, they spent the season here at Allegiant Stadium, sort of referencing that they are spirits that are still walking around. And that sort of allowed us to exist in this science fiction world and allow us to not portray them as the actual people and sort of not tread on that fine line that exists with deepfake morality throughout many different political and social strata when it comes to this technology. It's obviously a huge, sometimes controversial, sometimes incredibly useful technology. And so by using it in sort of a science fiction way and in a afterlife spiritual way, um, we we wanted to get away from the fact or any sort of interpretation that we were implying that this was actually Al and Pete.
Well, I know I almost started to question myself on what was real and what was not real, but um, I believe Brent was real. was was the interview with Al Davis's son, was that that was real, right?
Yes, yeah. So that's the only interview that's really in the film. The framing device of Brent Musburger, is in the present day and is setting up the fact that he wonders aloud, um, if their spirits are still around. They spent the season here, at the stadium, and then sort of passes the baton to the two narrators, which are the spirits. So the only interview was Mark Davis, and we felt that was important to sort of bring it back to the current day. And that question that all documentarians ask themselves: why now? Like, why are you making the film now? Um, One, you have the subject, but why are you making it today? Why should people watch it today rather than save it for 3 years from now? Or why did you not make it 2 years ago?
So, did Mark Davis had a preview of your documentary, and did he had an opinion of the deep fake of his father?
He saw it after his interview. He saw it recently, once we were finished, and he enjoyed it. He really enjoyed the film. He enjoyed the memories. He was there for a lot of the trials. He was sitting in the courtroom, and deepfake technology isn't perfect. I think Martin Scorsese spent hundreds of millions of dollars on The Irishman, and I don't think Robert De Niro was perfect, and we certainly didn't spend that much. And I think in the future, it'll continue to improve. We used really a combination. There was really five elements combined. It was stand-ins on set, combined with prosthetics for the hair, ears, and neckline. Then, thirdly, the deep fake technology for the face. Then, of course, we wrote the dialogue and then had impressionists do the actual voices. So, take five elements, and that's what you end up seeing on screen, which is a heck of a combination compared to, one person presenting the story. Quite a difference than what we usually do in sports documentaries. And I'm sort of an old school guy, in many ways. When I grew up watching science fiction, it was all models, and I always liked the models better because you can tell they're real. And I've always been sort of anti graphic special effects, and I always prefer the physical special effects. But this was new to me, and a new world and challenging to me, and I ended up really liking it and thinking there's real promise in it for the future.
Excellent. And how much of the new stadium did you actually use, or did you actually have to recreate some of those backgrounds?
Everything about the new stadium was practical. So the new stadium is completely built and functional and fully furnished and ready. And Mark Davis made the decision to not open it for any of the games to the public this year, because he could have opened it for a few fans, but he didn't want to do anything halfway. He wanted to wait until this coming season, the 2021 season, to fully open it for all fans. Hopefully, this COVID pandemic will be under control by then. And so we had the stadium to ourselves, and it was a 20-hour day we spent shooting this, just the stand-ins, doing these lines inside the stadium. We were inside the suites and by the Al Davis Memorial Torch there, and throughout the entire stadium, and it's magnificent, and it's completely done and empty. So when fans get to go in there, it's going to be quite the event.
That is terrific because that was like the first look for many of us into the stadium, and that's a great feature into your documentary.
Yeah.
Well, Ken, let me leave with one more thought. So when audiences get to check out your documentary pretty soon, what is the one most important take or lesson that you hope that they would walk away with?
In the end, I think the lesson of this film is something that Mark Davis brings up, and that is what he learned watching this feud between his father and Commissioner Rozelle. He learned that they both paid a real personal price and toll going through their decades-long feud and the bitterness they had towards each other. And to get the current stadium, to obtain peace with the National Football League and the Raiders, he decided to use sugar rather than salt in the recipe. And I think what he means by that is, in his current relationship as owner of the Raiders that he inherited from his father, he went the opposite way of his father and didn't cook the relationship with the NFL. He didn't cook with bitterness. He cooked with a little bit of sweetness. And he tried to get along with the powers that be rather than always compete with them and fight against them. And it worked. And maybe that's a lesson for all of us, that we don't always have to fight. Maybe when people see opposite than we do, we can just use a little bit of sugar with people we disagree with instead of salt.
Absolutely, I think we could all learn from that years of feud between the two. Well, Ken, hey, thank you for conversing with me. It's a pleasure to check out your documentary, not to mention the first look of of the new Vegas stadium inside, which is terrific. So
Yes.
Can't wait for everybody else to check this out. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.